The AC unit wheezed like a fading animal in the summer heat, and I was elbow-deep in its mechanical guts at 11:30 on a Tuesday night. That's the thing about running your own HVAC business in suburban Ohio. Emergencies don't follow business hours, and neither do I when there's money on the table. Nathan Brooks, they call me. 39 years old, calloused hands, and a reputation for fixing what others can't. My wife Colleen always said I was better with machines than people. Tonight, crouched in Mrs. Henderson's sweltering attic, I was starting to think she might be right. The house below me had gone quiet an hour ago, but as I wrestled with a stubborn compressor, I heard Colleen's voice drifting up through the floorboards. She was on the phone, laughing in that breathy way that used to make my heart skip. Now it just made my stomach turn. "Liam, you're terrible," she giggled. "Nathan's working late again. He always is." I froze, wrench halfway to the bolt I'd been loosening. Liam Quinn, her ex-boyfriend from college. The guy she claimed was just a friend these days. "I miss talking to you like this," Colleen continued, her voice dropping to an intimate whisper. "Remember when we used to stay up all night just talking? Nathan falls asleep watching TV most nights." The wrench slipped from my fingers, clattering against the metal ductwork. I held my breath, waiting to see if she'd heard. The conversation continued without pause. "I know we said we'd keep things appropriate, but sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd chosen differently back then." My chest tightened. 20 years of marriage, and she was wondering about roads not taken with another man. I'd known Liam was back in town. His divorce from Mara had been the talk of our social circle 6 months ago. What I hadn't known was that Colleen had been in contact with him. "The charity dinner next week? Of course you should come. Nathan won't mind. He never minds anything anymore." She was wrong about that. I minded plenty. I just didn't see the point in fighting battles I couldn't win. Colleen had always been the social one, the one who made our plans and managed our calendar. I fixed air conditioners and heating systems. She fixed our life, or so I'd thought. "You're right, we should get coffee soon. Catch up properly. Nathan's always so busy with work he probably won't even notice." The conversation ended with more laughter and promises to text soon. I sat in the darkness of the attic, surrounded by the mechanical bones of someone else's comfort system, and realized my own life's climate control had been broken for longer than I'd wanted to admit. When I finally climbed down from the attic and packed up my tools, Mrs. Henderson pressed a check into my hands and thanked me for coming out so late. "You're a lifesaver, Nathan. I don't know what I'd do without reliable people like you." Reliable. That's what I was. Reliable Nathan, who worked late and fell asleep watching TV, and apparently didn't notice when his wife rekindled old flames. I drove home through empty suburban streets, past houses where other couples were probably sleeping peacefully beside each other. Our neighborhood was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone else's business, where gossip traveled faster than the morning paper, and secrets had a shelf life measured in hours, not days. Colleen was already in bed when I got home, breathing deeply in what appeared to be sleep. I stood in the doorway of our bedroom, watching her in the dim light from the hallway, and wondered how long she'd been pretending. 3 weeks passed before I found the photos. 3 weeks of watching Colleen check her phone constantly, of noticing how she lit up when certain texts came through, of enduring dinner conversations about how poor Liam was adjusting to single life again. "We should have him over for dinner," she'd suggested the previous Friday, cutting into her salmon with surgical precision. "He's probably eating takeout every night. It's the neighborly thing to do." Neighborly. That's what she called it when she spent 45 minutes getting ready for a quick trip to the grocery store, just in case she ran into him. Neighborly was the new perfume she'd started wearing, the one that cost more than my monthly truck payment. I might have been reliable, but I wasn't stupid. The discovery happened by accident, the way these things usually do. I was transferring photos from my phone to our shared cloud storage, pictures from a job site I needed to send to a supplier, when I noticed a folder I didn't recognize. Weekend Getaways, it was labeled, nestled between Christmas 2023 and home renovations. We hadn't taken any weekend getaways recently. My finger hovered over the folder for a long moment before curiosity won out. The first photo was innocent enough. Colleen laughing at what looked like a restaurant patio, wine glass in hand. She looked radiant, happier than I'd seen her in months. Then I swiped to the next image and felt the ground shift beneath me. Liam Quinn sat across from her at the same table, leaning forward with that charming smile I remembered from the few times we'd socialized before his divorce. His hand rested on top of hers on the white tablecloth. I swiped again and again. A hotel room with 2 wine glasses on the nightstand. Colleen in a black dress I'd never seen before, posing in front of a bathroom mirror. Liam's reflection visible behind her, his hands on her waist. The final photo was taken from a hotel balcony, a view of downtown Columbus I recognized from a conference I'd attended last year. The timestamp showed it was taken 3 days ago, the same day Colleen had told me she was visiting her sister in Cincinnati. I sat in my truck in the parking lot of a Home Depot, staring at my phone screen until the images burned themselves into my retinas. 20 years of marriage, and she was taking romantic weekend trips with her ex-boyfriend, while I worked 60-hour weeks to keep our business afloat. The smart thing would have been to confront her immediately. The right thing, probably. But I've never been accused of being the smartest guy in the room, and anger has a way of clarifying priorities in unexpected directions. Instead, I found myself thinking about Mara Quinn. Liam's soon-to-be ex-wife was a freelance accountant who'd always struck me as sharp and no-nonsense during the few social gatherings we'd all attended. If Liam was sneaking around with my wife, there was a good chance Mara deserved to know about it as much as I did. I found her number in my contacts. We'd exchanged information last year when she'd offered to help me organize my business finances. She answered on the second ring. "Nathan, is everything okay?" Her voice was cautious but warm. I realized I'd never called her before, that this conversation was going to change everything for both of us. "Mara, I need to ask you something, and I'm not sure how to do it diplomatically." A pause. "Okay. When was the last time you heard from Liam?" Another pause, longer this time. "Why do you ask?" "Because I think we need to talk, in person, and I think you're going to want to see what I have to show you." We agreed to meet at a coffee shop in the next town over, somewhere neither of us was likely to run into anyone we knew. As I drove home, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months, a sense of purpose. Colleen was in the kitchen when I walked in, humming while she prepared what looked like an elaborate dinner. She'd changed clothes since I'd left that morning, now wearing a sundress that showed off her figure and the new jewelry I'd noticed but hadn't questioned. "You're home early," she said, not looking up from the vegetables she was chopping. "I thought you had that commercial job today." "Finished ahead of schedule." I studied her profile, looking for signs of guilt or deception. She looked content, almost glowing. "Anything special happening tonight? Can't a wife cook a nice dinner for her husband?" She finally looked at me, smiling in a way that once would have made me forget whatever I'd been worried about. I just felt like doing something special. I wondered if this was what guilt looked like on her, this sudden attention to domestic details, this effort to play the perfect wife. Or maybe she was just happy, energized by her secret life in a way that our marriage hadn't managed to achieve in years. "That's nice," I said, and meant it. It was nice. It was also too little, too late. The coffee shop Mara had chosen was one of those deliberately rustic places with exposed brick and mismatched furniture, the kind of establishment that served $8 lattes to people who wanted to feel authentic while spending suburban money. I arrived 10 minutes early and claimed a corner table where we could talk without being overheard. Mara walked in exactly on time, scanning the room until she spotted me. She looked tired, I noticed. The kind of bone-deep exhaustion that comes from months of uncertainty and stress. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and she wore jeans and a simple blue sweater that somehow made her look more put together than Colleen did in her designer outfits. Nathan? She slid into the chair across from me, declining my offer to buy her coffee. I have to admit, your call yesterday has had me curious and worried in equal measure. I pulled out my phone and set it on the table between us. I'm going to show you something, and I want you to know that I'm not doing this to hurt you. I'm doing it because I think you deserve to know the truth, the same way I deserve to know it. Her expression grew serious. Show me. I opened the photo folder and turned the phone toward her. She looked at the first image, Colleen and Liam at the restaurant, and her face went very still. I watched her swipe through the rest of the photos, her jaw tightening with each image. When she finished, she set the phone down carefully and stared at her hands for a long moment. How long? She asked quietly. Based on the timestamps, at least 3 weeks, maybe longer. 3 weeks. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. He told me he needed space to work on himself, said he wasn't ready to date anyone yet, that it wouldn't be fair to rush into something new when he was still processing our divorce. I'm sorry, Mara. She looked up at me, and I was surprised to see anger rather than sadness in her eyes. Don't be sorry. Be smart. What do you want to do about this? The question caught me off guard. I'd expected tears, maybe denial, possibly anger directed at me for being the messenger. I hadn't expected a strategic discussion. I don't know, I admitted. I've never been in this situation before. Well, I have. Her voice was crisp, businesslike. My first husband cheated on me with his secretary. Cliché, I know. I handled it badly. Lots of crying, lots of dramatic confrontations, lots of giving him chances to explain and lie some more. By the time it was over, I looked like the crazy ex-wife, and he looked like the victim of my emotional instability. She leaned forward, her eyes intense. I'm not making that mistake again. If we're going to do something about this, we're going to be smart about it. We? Nathan, they're making fools of both of us. Liam is supposed to be paying me alimony while he gets back on his feet. But apparently, he has enough money to take your wife on romantic getaways, and Colleen is spending your money to cheat on you while you work non-stop to keep your business running. She was right, of course. I'd been so focused on the betrayal that I hadn't considered the practical implications. The money Liam was spending on hotels and restaurants was money that should have been going to Mara. The time Colleen was spending with him was time she was stealing from our marriage while I covered for her at home. What did you have in mind? Mara smiled for the first time since she'd sat down, and it transformed her entire face. I think it's time they found out what it feels like to be exposed, but we're going to do it right. No drama, no scenes, no giving them ammunition to use against us later. Over the next hour, she laid out a plan that was both elegant and devastating. We would document everything, gather evidence, and then choose the perfect moment to reveal what we knew. Not in private, where they could spin the story or beg for forgiveness, but in public, where their reputations would be on the line. The charity dinner next week, I said, remembering Colleen's phone conversation. She invited him. They'll both be there. Perfect. Half the town will be there, including people they work with. It'll be impossible to contain the fallout. As we parted ways in the parking lot, Mara touched my arm. Nathan, thank you for calling me. I know this wasn't easy. Thank you for not shooting the messenger. Oh, I'm saving my ammunition for the real targets. Driving home, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Anticipation. For the first time since I'd discovered Colleen's betrayal, I had a plan that didn't involve confrontation or ultimatums or any of the messy emotional scenes I was terrible at navigating. I was going to do what I did best, fix something that was broken. The only difference was that this time I wasn't planning to repair it. I was planning to replace it entirely. The week leading up to the charity dinner passed in a strange state of suspended animation. Colleen continued her routine of secret phone calls and mysterious errands, while I played the role of oblivious husband with what I thought was convincing authenticity. She'd been increasingly bold about her relationship with Liam, inviting him to our neighborhood barbecue the previous weekend and introducing him to our friends as an old friend who's going through a tough time. I watched her touch his arm when she laughed at his jokes, noticed how she found excuses to stand close to him, saw the way they looked at each other when they thought no one was watching. Our friends ate it up. Liam had always been charming, the kind of man who could make anyone feel like the most interesting person in the room when he focused his attention on them. Within an hour of arriving at the barbecue, he was holding court by the grill, telling stories that had everyone laughing and nodding along. "He seems like a good guy," my neighbor Dave had said, passing me a beer. "It's nice of you and Colleen to include him in things while he's getting back on his feet." "Yeah," I'd replied, watching Colleen bring Liam a plate of food she'd prepared specially for him. "We're very inclusive." Meanwhile, Mara and I had been busy. She'd used her accounting skills to track financial records, discovering that Liam had been hiding assets during their divorce proceedings, money he was using to fund his romantic adventures. I'd been documenting his schedule, noting when his car was parked outside Colleen's office during lunch hours, when they met at restaurants across town, when they disappeared for entire afternoons. The evidence was overwhelming, but Mara insisted we wait for the perfect moment. "Patience," she'd told me during one of our coffee meetings. "Let them get comfortable. Let them think they're getting away with it. The harder they fall, the more satisfying it'll be." She was right, but patience had never been my strong suit. Every night I came home to Colleen's cheerful chatter about her day. Every morning I watched her spend extra time on her appearance. Every casual mention of Liam's name was like a small knife twist. The breaking point came 3 days before the charity dinner. I was working late in my shop, catching up on paperwork, when Colleen called to say she'd be home late. "Rita wants to go shopping for dresses for the dinner," she explained. "You know how she gets when she's trying to impress someone." Rita was Colleen's best friend, a divorced real estate agent who treated every social event like a potential husband hunting expedition. The shopping trip sounded plausible enough, except that I'd seen Rita's car parked outside the wine bar downtown when I'd driven past an hour earlier. She wasn't shopping for dresses. Curiosity won out over common sense. I locked up the shop and drove to the hotel where Colleen and Liam had been photographed. Sure enough, Colleen's car was in the parking lot, parked next to Liam's silver BMW. I sat in my truck for 20 minutes, staring at those two cars and feeling something cold settle in my chest. This wasn't just an emotional affair or a series of innocent coffee dates. This was a full-blown relationship, complete with regular hotel meetings and elaborate lies. My phone buzzed with a text from Colleen. "Shopping is taking forever. Don't wait up. Love you." I typed back, "Love you too. Have fun." It was the last lie I planned to tell her. The next morning, I called Mara. "It's time. I can't wait anymore." "What happened?" I told her about the hotel, about the lies, about the casual way Colleen had texted me while she was in bed with another man. Mara listened without interruption, and when I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "Okay," she said finally. "Let's end this. But we stick to the plan. No deviation, no improvisation. We get one shot at this, and we're going to make it count." The charity dinner was being held at the country club, a fundraiser for the local children's hospital that drew most of the town's social elite. It was exactly the kind of event where reputations were made and destroyed, where gossip became currency and social standing could shift in the span of a single conversation. Colleen spent the entire day of the dinner getting ready, transforming our bedroom into what looked like a department store cosmetics counter. She'd bought a new dress for the occasion, a sleek black number that cost more than I made in a week, and had her hair and nails done at the salon. "You look beautiful," I told her as she put the finishing touches on her makeup, and I meant it. She did look beautiful. She also looked like a woman getting ready for a date. "Thank you." She smiled at me in the mirror. "You clean up pretty well yourself." I was wearing my best suit, the one I'd bought for my father's funeral 3 years earlier. It still fit, mostly, though the jacket was a little tight across the shoulders. I'd never been the kind of man who was comfortable in formal wear, but tonight I wanted to look the part. "Is Liam going to be there?" I asked casually. "I think so. He bought a ticket to support the cause." She turned to face me, and for a moment I saw something that might have been guilt flicker across her features. "Nathan, I hope you don't mind that I've been spending time with him. I know it might seem strange, but he's been going through such a hard time with the divorce and—" "It's fine," I interrupted. "You're a caring person. It's one of the things I love about you." Relief flooded her face. "I'm so glad you understand. Some husbands would be jealous or suspicious, but you've always trusted me." "I have," I agreed. "Completely." As we drove to the country club, Colleen chatted about the evening ahead, about which of our friends would be there and what the auction items might be. She seemed relaxed, happy even, like a woman looking forward to a pleasant evening with her husband. I wondered if she'd still be smiling in a few hours. The Riverside Country Club was draped in elegant lighting, its ballroom filled with the cream of our small city's society. Colleen moved through the crowd like she belonged there, stopping to chat with friends and acquaintances, her laughter carrying over the din of conversation and clinking glasses. I followed a few steps behind, playing the dutiful husband, shaking hands and making small talk about business and the weather. But my attention was focused on scanning the room for two specific people, Liam Quinn and Mara. I spotted Liam first, standing near the bar in a perfectly tailored tuxedo that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. He was holding court with a small group of men I recognized from the country club's golf league, gesturing with a rocks glass that caught the light as he spoke. Mara arrived 20 minutes later, and I almost didn't recognize her. Gone was the tired, practical woman I'd been meeting for coffee. Tonight she wore a deep blue dress that hugged her figure in all the right places, her hair styled in loose waves that framed her face. She looked stunning, confident, and dangerous. Our eyes met across the room, and she gave me the slightest nod. Everything was in place. Colleen spotted Liam at the same moment I located Mara. I watched my wife's face light up, saw her excuse herself from the conversation she'd been having with the mayor's wife, and witnessed her make her way across the room toward her lover. "Liam!" She touched his arm, and he turned with a smile that was just a little too warm for old friends. "I'm so glad you decided to come." "Wouldn't miss it," he replied, his voice carrying that smooth charm that had probably gotten him out of trouble his entire life. "You look incredible, Colleen." She blushed like a teenager. "You're not so bad yourself." I felt a hand on my elbow and turned to find Mara beside me. "Ready for this?" she murmured. "More than ready." "Remember, we let them make the first move. We're just two innocent people having a conversation." Mara and I approached the bar, positioning ourselves close enough to Colleen and Liam that our presence would be noticed, but not so close as to seem confrontational. I ordered a whiskey, Mara asked for wine, and we began what appeared to be a casual conversation about the evening's fundraising goals. It took exactly 3 minutes for Colleen to notice us. I saw her do a double take, her eyes widening as she recognized Mara. She whispered something to Liam, who turned to look at us with an expression that shifted from confusion to concern to something approaching panic. "Nathan." Colleen appeared at my side, her voice bright but strained. "I didn't realize Mara was coming tonight." "Last-minute decision," Mara replied smoothly. "Nathan mentioned what a wonderful cause this was, and I thought it would be nice to support the children's hospital. I hope you don't mind that I asked him to escort me. It's been difficult going to social events alone since the divorce." The words were perfectly innocent, but the implication was clear. Colleen's face went pale, then flushed red. "Of course not. It's just unexpected." Liam had joined our little group, positioning himself slightly behind Colleen in what might have been a protective gesture. "Mara," he said carefully, "you look well." "Thank you, Liam. You look prosperous. The divorce settlement must be treating you kindly. The barb hit its mark. Liam's jaw tightened, and I saw his hand clench around his drink. I'm managing. I'm sure you are. Mara's smile was sharp as a blade. It must be nice to have so much free time for social activities. And travel. I saw some lovely photos recently of weekend getaways, very romantic settings. The silence that followed was deafening. Colleen and Liam exchanged a look that confirmed everything we'd suspected and more. They weren't just having an affair, they were in love, or at least thought they were. I don't know what you're implying, Colleen said, but her voice lacked conviction. I'm not implying anything, Mara replied. I'm stating facts. Your husband and my soon-to-be ex-husband have been conducting an affair for at least a month, possibly longer. They've been meeting at hotels, taking romantic trips, and lying to both of us about their whereabouts. The words hit the group like a physical blow. Colleen stepped backward, nearly stumbling in her high heels. Liam reached out to steady her, then seemed to realize that the gesture only confirmed what Mara had said. That's ridiculous, Colleen said, but her protest sounded hollow even to her own ears. Is it? I spoke for the first time, my voice calm and level. Because I have photos, Colleen, hotel receipts, restaurant charges on credit cards, a paper trail that would make an accountant proud. I looked at Mara, which makes sense, since an accountant helped me put it together. Around us, other conversations continued, but I could feel the attention of nearby guests beginning to focus on our group. Voices were starting to carry, and in a room full of people who thrived on gossip, that was as good as a public announcement. Nathan, please, Colleen whispered, can we discuss this privately? Like you discussed your weekend in Columbus privately? Or your lunch dates at the Marriott? I took a sip of my whiskey, surprised by how steady my hand was. I think we're past private discussions. Liam finally found his voice. Look, this doesn't have to become a scene. We're all adults here. You're right, Mara agreed. We are all adults, which is why I'm sure you'll understand when I tell you that I'll be filing an amended petition with the divorce court on Monday morning. Turns out hiding assets and conducting an extramarital affair during separation proceedings can significantly impact settlement negotiations. And I'll be filing for divorce myself, I added, looking directly at Colleen. No fault, of course. Though I suspect the judge will be interested in the financial records showing how much of our joint money was spent on your romantic adventures. Colleen's composure finally cracked. How can you do this to me? Here, in front of everyone? The same way you could lie to me every day for months, I replied. The same way you could look me in the eye and tell me you loved me while you were planning your next hotel meeting with him. Tears started streaming down her face, ruining her carefully applied makeup. I never meant for this to happen. It just did. No, I said firmly. It didn't just happen. You made choices. Every text, every lie, every weekend trip was a choice, and now you get to live with the consequences. By now, our conversation had drawn a small crowd of onlookers. I could see phones being discreetly pulled out, social media posts being crafted in real time. By tomorrow morning, everyone in town would know what had happened at the charity dinner. Colleen seemed to realize this at the same moment I did. She looked around at the faces watching us, some sympathetic, others hungry for drama, and something in her expression shifted from sadness to rage. Fine, she said, her voice rising. You want to humiliate me? You want to destroy my reputation? Congratulations, Nathan. You've won. I hope you and your new girlfriend are very happy together. We will be, I said calmly, because we're both adults who believe in honesty and commitment, two qualities that seem to be in short supply in your relationship with Liam. Mara stepped closer to me, slipping her arm through mine in a gesture that was both supportive and possessive. Nathan's right. We deserve better than partners who lie and cheat and steal. The word steal hit Liam like a physical blow. He'd been relatively quiet during the confrontation, probably hoping to minimize his own exposure, but the accusation of theft brought him into the conversation with both feet. "I never stole anything," he said hotly. "No?" Mara's eyebrows rose. "Then I'm sure you'll have no problem explaining to the court how you could afford romantic getaways while claiming poverty in our divorce proceedings. I'm sure the judge will be fascinated by your creative accounting methods." The fight went out of Liam as quickly as it had appeared. He looked around the room, seemed to realize that his reputation was being destroyed in real time, and made the only choice he had left. He ran. Not literally. This was a black-tie charity event, after all. But he excused himself with a muttered comment about needing air and walked quickly toward the exit. Several people followed him with their eyes, and I knew that by the time he reached his car, the story would already be spreading through the room like wildfire. Colleen watched him leave with an expression of growing horror. Her lover, her great romance, her reason for destroying our marriage, had abandoned her at the first sign of real consequences. "Colleen," I said gently, and she turned to look at me with eyes full of tears and rage and something that might have been regret. "You chose him," I continued, my voice carrying clearly in the sudden quiet that had fallen over our section of the room. "I chose his wife." The words hung in the air like a pronouncement, final and irrevocable. Colleen stared at me for a long moment, her mouth opening and closing as if she wanted to say something, but couldn't find the words. Then she turned and walked away, her heels clicking against the marble floor as she made her own escape from the wreckage of her reputation. I stood there, with Mara's arm still linked through mine, surrounded by the whispered conversations and sideways glances of people who had just witnessed the social event of the year. Tomorrow, this would be the talk of the town. Next week, it would be legend. "Well," Mara said quietly,